So, I've started recording. Uh, you're okay with the whole thing being recorded?
Yeah, sure, of course.
Okay, so this is gonna be kind of forced, but I do have a somewhat of a limited time frame today. So
No
today I'll
worries.
be interviewing Ty Sayman. He was my robotics coach in high school for 2 years when I was on Team 900. I believe you got an electrical engineering degree from Georgia Tech. Is that right?
It's actually a mechanical engineering degree,
Mechanical
believe
engineering.
believe it or not. So,
But you work? Don't you work on cars?
I do. I went to the dark side. I took my senior year, one of my electives was a class called microprocessor controls. And it changed the trajectory of my life. I can tell you that for sure. I was hooked, like absolutely hooked. So I've been doing control stuff since then.
So, the only thing I actually so like where one of the questions is actually where do you work? Like what company?
So I work at Motive Motorsports, which is Motive Motorsport without an S .com is our website. And I'm one of the owners. I own about 25% of the business, and there's two other guys. One owns the guy that started it owns like 50.1, and the other guy is like also 25. So
So, what's one of the first what was one of the things that kind of pushed you from mechanical engineering into the control systems, which is something that's more of like an electrical engineering field?
so um so I took this class, this microprocessor controls, which was really like the old Motorola HC11 evaluation board and making like LEDs blink. And so we basically had to write software to run the thing, and we had to build little prototype, like proto board stuff, um, and that class actually had a lot of practical stuff. Like our final presentation in that class was a model of a working greenhouse with like a soil moisture sensor, and a light sensor for the roof, which was really cool because people would lean over the thing and go, "Ooh, what's this do?" And when they did, it would make the sensor darker, so it would open the roof more. So it was this really cool. It turned out to be like a really cool interactive thing. Anyway, so that class and the fact I had been doing Formula SAE with GT Motorsports, and had been doing car design, actually suspension design on my senior year. So lots of friends, lots of people went up to Detroit to work out of of my friend group from college. There was like half a dozen people that we were all in Detroit at the same time together, more or less. And um, I first job I got was actually doing mechanical kind of stuff, and I really didn't like it. And then I ended up pretty quickly getting a job with Kelsey Hayes doing anti-lock brake system development, which was also sort of hardware and software and electronics and all that. And then while I was doing that, while I was there, I started racing go-karts, and for that go-kart, I wanted to do a data acquisition system, and I didn't want to buy it. I wanted to make one of my own, so I did. So hardware, software, sensors. Well, I bought the sensors, but all that. So
Yeah, we're that's
that's
kind of funny enough. That's actually what I'm going to be working on in Baja SAE, where the car itself is I don't know how to describe it other than it looks, there's they keep talking about how they want to do all this stuff with like brakes, and then I looked into it and I was like, where's the sensor? And they go, we don't have one. They have nothing. That's
Mm.
random, but it's kind of on topic. It's weird, kind of doing some of the car stuff coming from a robot where I was used to all of these different things. It's similar in the sense of there's a lot of things to do, but
Mm.
also it's a lot simpler in certain ways. There's a lot more. I don't know how to describe it other than like I look at it and I go, yeah, this was built in seven days, and compared to the robot, which you look at it and it looks a lot different. Speaking of, how's
Right.
900 doing? Bit off topic.
Um, really good. We have, you wouldn't believe this. I need to send you a picture. I have a picture of oh, I don't know, 25 students with laptops open, working on their laptops in one of the engineering classrooms. And are you sitting down?
Yeah.
They were all working on, this was all mechanical people, and they were all working on Onshape tutorial lesson stuff.
Ah, that's good.
It was like, holy crap. Like we have a lot of mechanical people right now, and maybe even a little few too many, but obviously some will drop, some drop out, some drop in, some drop out, right?
Mhm.
Um, so from that side, it's going well. We went to Doyen, the Doyen East.
I
The
watched. I watched that.
Yeah,
My
that
sister
was
was
fun.
there, and there was a lot of texting back and forth of, Chad, what does this mean? Chad, what does this mean?
Yeah, yeah. So they did really well. It was fun. And obviously they won, it
Hmm.
was it was great. So that was good. Um they introduced we're doing an off-season sort of practice game where and it's going to be frisbees with, like, we have some frisbee golf frisbees. So it's basically
Hmm.
designed like design a frisbee shooter, or frisbee scoring device.
Hmm.
Um, and that was rolled out last night. They built the goal on Monday. So we're moving forward. They're doing a lot of CAD stuff, and um, the older students are doing really well, and we have a bunch of younger ones, which is a little bit like last night. They were annoying me, but it's the way it goes. It Renan said, "Yeah, they're eighth graders being eighth graders." I'm like, "Yeah, I know, but Jesus Christ, they
Yeah.
need to they need to act like they're in an actual high school with like upper class people." So
Hmm.
anyway, so really that means sort of, uh actually it's going really well. And it's like, the cool part is, it's um it's a little weird because it's back to like it was before COVID, where there's a lot more people in, and like the socialization skills are being relearned,
Hmm.
or have been relearned more. So you can kind of see that getting better. And drama's been generally low so far, a little bit here and there, but
Knock on wood.
um, oh, I know, man. God. So I'm hopeful that people being back in person and realizing that if you trash somebody online yesterday and they find out about it today, that they're going to be in your face.
Yeah.
And that tends to make people be slightly less, oh, I don't know, assholes. I'm not sure I don't know. It's like Lord of the Flies.
Yeah,
I assume
kind
you.
of. Yeah,
Yeah.
I to get slightly back on topic, but still about robotics. As an engineer, there's a bit of a social stigma about, or at least a social perception that team building and like working as a team is sometimes a little hard. That engineers don't talk to each other much. As a first year engineer, like in a job, or like as you went along in your major classes to senior year, is that something you can like you've experienced? As in like,
Yeah, I mean, we had in school, we had projects. So like that greenhouse thing, that was like me and two other guys. And there was Another one I did a biotech thing where we did like a sleep apnea mask. We redesigned one, and that was me and two other guys. Although Georgia Tech did go, the mechanical engineering department did go from 8 to 9% female while I was there. So it's much better now, but that's, of course, when my mom went to the University of Tennessee, the women weren't allowed to wear pants. So, which is true. Anyway, so I found that collaboration is difficult because to be a good engineer, you need to be able to be not only creative, creative thinking and detailed and um, a little bit obsessive to be a good one, I think. And the problem is that doesn't like three obsessive, creative, detail oriented people crammed into one small space can be difficult sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So, and and so you have to learn how to deal with the other personalities. And like I'm a super procrastinator type, and like I would have fit in perfectly at science and math, except I probably would have failed out. So even though I'm, smart or whatever, air quotes smart. So um working in a team. So I've worked in big teams and mediums. Like I've worked in like when I did anti-lock brake stuff, we were a group of about half a dozen people inside a relatively large company, but our department ran like a little small group, right? And um we had several different personalities and we were all sort of, in air quotes, engineers. One of those engineers is now a masseuse because he was really actually probably not cut out to be an engineer. He's a farmer too, actually, now too, is kind of interesting. So he fixes all of his own machines and he does a lot of creative stuff with that still, but he's also, so I don't know. It's like the long answer is it's, you, you do have to work with other people, but it's often very individual, and it's very individualistic type of work. Um, but then there's also a group. You always have to work within some sort of, structure in a sense. And in real world, it's, what did the sales guys actually sell that we don't have yet? That type of stuff. So anyway,
Yeah, speaking of kind of money issues, there's a lot of kind of up and down with jobs, or at least from what I've heard, where engineers will, especially with startups, startups will form, they'll last a good 4 or 5 months, then they will kind of crash and burn, especially with some of the stuff in kind of software world.
mhm.
Have you, have you, how did you deal with some of the mental health and money ramifications if you had any of those, like joined a startup, lasted 4 or 5 good months, and then it died?
I the closest I came to that was I went out on my own and did like custom design contracting kind of stuff after I quit ZF. When I came back from Germany the second time, I worked for about a year and then quit and moved up. That's when I moved up to Raleigh. And so I went to work for myself. I don't know. I didn't really, I mean, for me, it was like the hard part is you have to have discipline, right? You have to get up, you have to do the work. Nobody else is going to do it. And you certainly can't hide. Like in the last department I worked in at ZF, you could easily hide for a long time behind somebody else's being late or something like that, right? That type of stuff. So you're I don't know. My brother worked for a company that was like a seed company actually at Georgia Tech. Interesting, even though he went to NC State. But and they were using something to predict weather, and I don't know, that one blew up, and I watched all that happen from afar. But he never really had roots. I'll say it that way. So I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that other than when I was working for myself, it was kind of like that. And it was um I found just it was a lot more stressful for me in that sense.
Yeah, I've looked into a bunch of like the startups for things over the summer. Like they're around Raleigh, although most of them just need code people that I don't know how to do. But it's just like it's just that I've actually. Do you remember Ben Kant on Zebra Cakes?
Sure.
He's actually made a startup now, Sunrise Robotics, and it's I have
Okay.
no idea how he's managing it, but he has it on his LinkedIn, and we've talked about it a couple times. I have no idea what his
Interesting.
product is going to be though.
Sorry, my phone's gonna blow up.
It's fine.
Um, so um I'm sure it'll be something. Certainly he's a high flyer type. Hang on a second. Yes, that's it. Thanks, sir. Yeah, appreciate it. Right door open. Sorry. Okay.
Okay.
Um, anyway, so yeah, that doesn't surprise me that Ben would do something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Kind of going on to slowly kind of more of the educational experience. You mentioned that like you moved from mechanical for oriented to electrical oriented. How much do you say now that it's been many years out, how much do you say that having the degree in mechanical engineering while working in engineering field kind of the actual name on the degree, how much do you feel that that mattered through your career? As long as it had the word engineering at the end.
A lot. It makes people think you can do just about anything. It makes it there is a it's an interesting thing. People, yeah, I mean it really having an engineering degree makes people think that you know more than you actually do. Like for sure.
Can you like? Is there a specific example that you're thinking of, or just the general?
Anything. Setting the clock on a VCR, I mean, which is a past thing, but I mean, literally almost anything. So if somebody asks you, and plus if they think you like I was formerly very much a car guy. And I can tell you now that there's a lot of cars. I look them out on the road and I go, oh, I've never seen one of those before. And then I go and look it up and it's like, oh, this has been like 5 years this thing has been out, or whatever. And so people being an engineer, and I guess in my case too, especially somebody that's got mechanical training, and I've and I took a lot of obviously take a lot of electives and stuff like that, so you get a lot of pretty wide ranging information, and doing a lot of electrical and electronics stuff. It's like it's just a you tend to get a lot of knowledge about or a little bit of knowledge about a lot of things beyond the a lot of knowledge. Like you'll have a lot of knowledge about certain things, but there also be a little for a lot of things, and people recognize that. Right. What they don't get is when you have like maybe a personality or something and you're not just like a total dork. Even though I guess most of the dorks in the world don't realize that's what they are. But anyway, so it's just this thing. There's your the perception of your ability is or capability is you're given, I guess, a much higher, like the perception that
People
people
think
have.
people think you know what you're doing more often than you actually are.
Right, exactly. Now, the thing is, being an engineer also means if you're a good engineer, you're curious about things. You've learned a lot, right? And you know, it's just anyway. So, but I've often had people ask me questions where I'm thinking, wow, and I sit there and I'll sort of logic the thing out, and then, and part of it's having that type of ability. And yeah, it's just a little bit of it's kind of funny sometimes, well, you're an engineer, and it's like, uh, sure I do. Anyway.
Um, I have two more questions. So the second to last one is advice is like, do you have any major advice for students that are starting in your fields, referring to like the electrical engineering world that you do most of your career work in now?
Um, find the thing that you would do for free and get paid for it. And I know that sounds trite in a way, but it took me 30 years to figure that out, but that's what I'm doing now. So the only reason I'm not retired, and I'm not really old enough to retire, but my darling wife and I were extremely judicious with our money when we were young, and it's paid off. Um,
You
so
have boat money. You have boat
I
money
have boat
now.
money, and I'm looking at, when I look at the next boat, I'm not worried too much about it. So, and I mean, I'm not rich, but I'm like, I sacrificed a lot when I was your age. Well, not really when I was your age. A few years later, when I went back to college and got my degree, because I actually had a gap from high school to college of a few years,
Wasn't that
and worked.
the you and your buddy got like a job at some pizza place and delivered things, or is that just lore that I've mixed up?
No, I worked at a Domino's. I managed one of the top 10 Domino's in the country in volume for a while. Um, and then he and we bought cars and fixed them up and sold them. I mean, there's all kinds of crap that this guy and I did. It was crazy. Um, and so, but yeah, no, and the the thing is, like, if you have the ability to go do internships and stuff like that, go do them and figure out what you like and what you don't like. Don't get 10 years into your career and realize that you're interested in it sort of, but it's not really the thing for you, because you're going to spend a third of your life doing it, right? So find the thing that you like and do that, and try to figure out how to make money doing it, right? So not just, I mean, I say that, and I'm really serious when I say I get paid now to do the thing that I started. So I say I built the data acquisition system. I got a copy of Tango for DOS. I'm not joking. And
I have no idea what that
and
is.
Tango is like KiCad or one of the layout programs like Eagle. And I learned how to lay out a board, and I ordered a board from a place and it was completely wrong, and then I ordered another one, and then I got like my own micro to work, and I got, like blink a light, and I flipped out. It was like awesome. It was like literally like somebody in the, building a ham radio in their basement in the 60s, right? It's literally like that, except the more modern version of it. And for me, this was like hobby stuff. And over time, I was able to get myself into a position where I could actually do what I enjoy and make money at it. So figure it out. And I actually had a problem too, because so think about mechanical engineering.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bunch of different ways that it goes, but one of them is like, and this was back in Atlanta in in around in the early 90s, is my choices there were things like making packaging or doing some sort of HVAC design, or like building thermal loads on buildings, and like a lot of like core engineering stuff. And here I am, a car person, doing motorsport stuff and racing my Civic and autocrosses and doing all this kind of stuff. And like, I needed to do the things that were sort of car related. And I wasn't in a place that I could do that. Right. So, and it took a while for me to get there. So if you can get internships, if you can get, if you can find places to do things that are you think are going to be interesting, right? So if it's a startup or a internship or just even just going somewhere and like
Explore, meet new people, build connections. They may pay off later. That kind of
right. I mean,
exploration.
like you're from Greenville. So if you went out to um Heister, Yale, whatever the forklift company that's there, they've got a plant, they've got engineering, they got all kinds of stuff going on there, right? I
Yeah.
mean, and I mean, but I'm just saying, think of it in terms of like that. Like, okay, well, forklifts aren't very sexy, but I don't know if you're doing electrical stuff, like charging them wirelessly is, or the controls for drivers are, or I don't know, right?
Things
There's
that you may not expect to be in the individual parts. So things that you may not expect based on the end product, but are actually how the end product works.
right, right, exactly. So that's my advice is think longer term in the sense of and if you don't know, that's okay. But try something. Don't just not do anything because you don't know. Because you can always knock off the ones because it's easy to find the ones you don't like and check them off the list, right? So
All
that's
right.
my answer.
I mean that makes a lot of sense. Um,
Yeah,
the
I feel like it's a little cliched though, because it took me so long to get there. And now I'm finally like, I will tell you this. The first time the there were days when I was doing anti-lock brake calibration that I was like, I can't believe I'm getting paid to do this. Literally, I can't believe it. I'm sitting on a car or a truck, actually mostly a truck, on a frozen lake in Minnesota in the middle of the winter, and it's 20 below zero or zero when it's warm and whatever. And I'm like,
zero when
crack,
it's
roll the
warm.
window down. You can hear the ice cracking a little bit, and just like, I just, and then other times it sucked completely. But the fact is, there were times in that job, but that wasn't a career job. That was a younger person job, and it's find that. Go try to find that. Find the one that pays and has a track.
Mhm. All right. I mean, the thing that's kind of just like rough right now is as I'm learning to code, there's like a lot of stuff that's interesting, but they have requirements that I just don't meet yet. And that's been kind of stressful, especially with like programming languages. I'm learning C and C++, but a lot of places are like we need C, C++, Python, and usually Java, and it's just a lot to try and get into right now.
So one thing I'll say about that is once you've learned, so you can tell it in my code. I've taken one programming class. It was in Perl, and I knew more than the instructor at the time because I'd been doing it for a while. You can teach yourself, you can learn, you can do the things, and you can kind of fake it till you make it in some cases, but you can't do it with all the languages all at once. Um, so learn one pretty decently and go from there.
Mm-hmm.
I would of course pitch C because that's what embedded stuff uses and that's what interests me the most. And I can't stand C++, but have to deal with it sometimes. But anyway, don't get your head down. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you'll get there. It just takes time.
Yeah, I will say, learning like even like the start of C was like a little bit, but then after like we like the guy that's leading Baja and teaching us after like the first meeting, it got better. It got a lot better. I kind of understood where we were going from where we were. Not always like this. Not always like the exact steps to go like the next one, the next one, next one. But I always understood what the end point was.
Yeah, I mean, I think the important thing is, you know what I did? Where's that book? I have a book and it's called The C Programming Language, and it's like a pamphlet. It's like about 60 pages, and it's like a spiral bound, and it's literally like, here's the syntax for if then else. Here's the syntax for a while or a do loop. Here's how you cast. I mean, it's so simple, and it's not like a 900-page programming manual. It's literally like when you're sitting there going, shit, I forgot how to, like, I do it now. I sometimes will stay, if I think about typing in a for loop, if I actually think about I usually stop dead because then I'm like, oh shit, am I doing this right? If I don't think about it, I just type it, right? Because I know it.
Engineer's best
But
friend is Google.
right, well, you know, if you don't use Stack Overflow every 10 minutes, then you're obviously not using a you know, that, I mean, that's the best as far as I'm concerned. But I mean, the point is, I had when I was learning C, and I had been doing, I had actually been doing when I started doing ABS coding, and we were just doing light coding. It was really just for test stuff, and then the real production code was done by other people. It was in assembler, and then we switched to C, and I was like dying because I had done Visual Basic stuff, which was more object oriented, more like, hey, make this panel with buttons and sliders and stuff, instead of, no, you're staring at a blank piece of paper and you're trying to think of like, how am I going to make this do that, you know? And you know, what are bit operators? And but the thing is, once you learn these in one language, then you recognize there are things like loops and state machines and bit packing and you know, in C, when you're doing low level C stuff, it's like, how do you do math in a way that you don't get overflows? Like, you can't just make everything a floating point. I mean, you can, but you know, some of the stuff I do, you can't because it takes too much resources to do it. So anyway,
Mhm.
once you learn these things in one language, they tend to carry over to the other languages, then where you just have to go like, okay, well, C++ class is a class system basically, and Java is a class system. So once you understand generally how classes work, then you kind of already have the idea of what you're looking at, even if you're not 100% sure, like, you know, should this be a double colon or should this be a, you know, arrow, you know, that type of thing.
Mhm.
So anyway, learn one well. You cannot go wrong learning Python these days, I can tell you that. And C, you can, C's the basis for all the good stuff in C++. So
Yeah, that makes me that makes me at least that makes me feel better as I'm working with C. That okay. Last question, and then unfortunately I do have to make it to class by 11 o'clock.
okay,
So
my phone's rang like 5 times, and the UPS guy brought me the neighbor's package, which I already opened. He's got a nice new lightning cable.
ah,
I wonder what of mine he's got because it looks like they swapped them. Anyway,
um, as we move, this is a slightly kind of a more abstract question, but also with my grand challenge that I have to work for the overview of this class is improving urban infrastructure.
mm-hmm,
Obviously, you work with cars, and that's not quite that is that uses urban infrastructure.
mm-hmm,
One of the how can you, if you had to identify one major problem with urban infrastructure? Obviously, you commute into Durham every day, and I assume you use uh, several major roads. How would
mm-hmm.
you? how would you improve urban infrastructure if you had the magical power to just say, I see this problem and I'm going to fix it? Not actually have the solution, but just say, this is a problem and I want it fixed.
Um, I actually think I think most places need more bike lanes and need better way to separate pedestrians and cars and bicyclists and cars so that you make it safer to do those things so that people are more like I come in from a distance, so I'm always coming in on roads, but so we're talking like sidewalks and bike lanes are actually a lot more important than you think they are. Um,
Yeah,
we rode we
I
rode bikes in New York City, and it's like, you can get all over the damn, like there's bike trails, bike lanes, like all over the place there. Like it's easy to get around. It's easy to get around on foot. And Durham, for example, it's okay because like when I go the one way, I go past, if I come off on what is it, on Swift, cross the railroad tracks, and there's basically all Duke stuff on the right, and then you go through a neighborhood, then you get to science and math. So there's tends to be a lot of sidewalks, but like the roads are narrow and there's no room for bikes. So people ride or scooters for that matter.
I
So they're riding them on the sidewalks.
yeah, I recently I upgraded from my middle school bike to a commuter bike, and I've been riding that around mostly between Centennial and main campus here at State. And it is not a fun bike ride trying to get across Wade Avenue.
Yeah, so imagine this. So like in Germany where I lived, that road that you there would be a tunnel under that road. Period. Like no questions asked. There would be a tunnel and it would be wide enough for people to walk through and bicycles to go through. It may not have a lot of lights in it, maybe one or two, but it would even have, some light. And at night, it would be a safe way to get across well, I mean, that intersection was about 300 feet wide right there. I mean, it's crazy, right?
Yeah,
It's huge. So yeah, that kind of thing, right? Where you make it like you take the interaction away and you make it safer for everybody. And so what happens is now instead of you sitting over there going, well, I could do that, or I can go illegally park my car on the other side, or whatever, and that type of thing. So yeah,
well, this has been great. I hope 900 continues to do well. I hope that
yeah,
everything else is going good. I will.
yeah. So we're bringing so if you're down at the river tomorrow, we're going to sail right by you. We're taking our boat right now is down at Bach Marine, which is at Core Creek on Adams. So
Mhm.
down most of the way to Beaufort. We're bringing it home. Low tide's at like 10, so we're going to go under the bridge there at 10. So we'll be back at Blackbeard's by about 2:30 to 3 probably. So
Yeah, I'll be
anyway,
working. I'll be working there all tomorrow.
no,
So, I don't know what your boat looks like because I've only ever seen the like one profile picture of you steering it and the one where that you sent me not
oh
that long ago. But if I
yeah, it's a yeah. I it I'm gonna post a picture here at some point because it's just been waxed. The bootstrap's been repainted. It's very pretty right now. So anyway, no, it's a Saga 43. It's named Moon Dance. Got a big sticker on the side of it, and it's tall. It's tall. So anyway, all right. Well, good. I gotta go too. Jake's calling me again.
Mhm.
So all right.
You have a
Good
great
talking
rest of
to
the day,
you.
Ty.
Yeah, if you need anything else, just ask. Happy to help anytime.
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, I'll talk to you.
See ya.